I first met Malike when he was a high school student at a photo workshop that Sony hosted at SVA. And it was already in that weekend that I noticed how genuine, sharp, and curious Malike was and still is. Tonight, you'll hear from a young man whose work is featured in top magazines and who has worked for companies including Time, the New York Times Magazine, Elle Decor, the Wall Street Journal, the Atlantic, the New Yorker, New York Magazine, Instagram, Nike, Nikon, Foot Locker, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And in 2021, Malike's images from the Black Lives Matter protests were featured on the cover of the New York Times Magazine and included in as recognized as being among the top 10 images of 2021. Most recently, Malike had his work was auctioned at the world-renowned Christie's auction house. So it is our honor to welcome Malike and to hear how being genuine, being sharp, and being curious creates connections and opens doors to previously unimagined opportunities. Malike, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katrin, for that amazing introduction. I want to thank everybody from SVA for letting me in here, and Katrin as well. And also all you guys for taking time out of your day just to hear me talk. I really appreciate it. And I tend to speak very fast, especially when I'm nervous, which I am a little bit right now. So if I'm going a little too fast, please feel free to tell me to stop or slow down. Or if you're not understanding what I'm saying, just ask me to repeat it and I will happily do it. I want to start talking a little bit about who I am and what I do and where I come from. I am a Brooklyn-based West African photographer, and I specialize in fashion, portraiture, and documentary. And when I started on photography, I did a little bit of everything, anything from headshots, birthday parties, landscape, and studio portraiture, because to me, photography is what I fell in love with. And no matter what kind of photography it is that you ask me to do, I'm always happy to pick up my camera and start photographing it. And that's because it is my passion and it's what I love to do. And it's always important to know what you love about the art before you get yourself into it, no matter what it is that you're doing. As long as you have a passion for it, I feel like everything will work out pretty fine. And yeah. Throughout my career, I've been able to explore and push my creative boundaries, from photographing covers for the New York Times Magazine and having my work included in Time Magazine and the top 10 images of 2020. And throughout all that work, I kind of don't really like to say that I have my own style, but people have told me that they've seen me develop my style over the years. And down below are some of the images that I've done in the past that you'll get to see a little bit more. I'm going to start with how did I get into photography? When I was back home in West Africa, this is the country that I come from in West Africa, Guinea. I was born in Ivory Coast, but my mom and dad were both, my dad was born in the Ivory Coast and my mom was born in Guinea. And when I was younger, there was a war going on in Ivory Coast. So we migrated from from Ivory Coast to Guinea. And I lived up there up until when I was 13 years old. And we moved to America when I was 13. And I've been living in New York ever since. And these images right here are some of my first images that I've ever taken. When I was back home in Africa, after I was born, my dad left Africa and moved to the States, and I didn't get to see him up until when I was about 11 and 12 years old. And when he came to visit, he had this film camera that he always carries with him when he's traveling, and he documents what he does and wherever he goes. And when he comes back home, he'll show it to us. And when he was leaving, I kind of stole the camera away from him. I just kind of hid it so he wouldn't think of it and bring it back with him to the States. And when he left, I just took it out and started photographing literally anything or anyone. And to the left, you see my family. That's my mom and my cousins. And everybody else is like most of my friends. I always told them to come by my house so I could have their photo taken. And at the time, I didn't know that I was starting to find a passion that I would eventually pursue. I didn't know this was something that I wanted to do with my life. And So I just kept photographing anything, anyone. I actually got my hands on these images like 2 years ago for the first time ever. My grandmother came from Africa to here, and she brought them with her. She's like, "Hey, look, the photos that you left." I was like, "Oh my God." Um, but that, that's how I started. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about when I realized photography is what I wanted to do. Because originally I started out as a menswear designer. When I was younger, I thought that fashion design is what I wanted to do. So I started, when I was in high school, I started taking classes at FIT as a menswear designer. And as a high school student, they let you take these weekends classes where when you come in Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, and then you just take sewing classes. And while doing that, I realized that that's not really what I wanted to do. And I was pretty bad at it. And I'm kind of like the kind of person where it's like, if I am not having fun with something, I just change it, no matter what that is. And I think that's very important with whatever you're doing. If you see yourself, you're not enjoying whatever it is that you're doing, it's okay to stop, and it's okay to start it over or start something completely new. And that's what I did. I remember I saved up my money and I bought myself my first camera. And then I started taking photos. And in high school, all my friends knew me as the kid with the camera. And one of the days that we had a substitute teacher who happened to be a photography teacher. And I started asking her about photography and asking her if she knows any photo programs that I could join or go to and learn about photography. And that's when she recommended me to NYC SALT. For those of you who are not familiar with SALT, SALT is a nonprofit organization that creates opportunities and visual art and pathways to college to underserved New York City youth from diverse backgrounds. When I joined the program, I had friends from pretty much all over the place. It pretty much felt like my second home. From the first day that I walked in, I was like, "Hey guys, I know the class is full, but I have a camera and I would love to learn about photography." And then they welcomed me to the program and taught me anything from learning the ISO, shutter speed, composition, literally everything. I thought I was a pretty good photographer before joining the program because I was shooting an auto and my lighting looks great. And the photos I was taking, I thought was amazing. And then I joined the program. They showed me the whole new world when it came to the camera. And through that, I got mentors and I got friends who were into photography, and they provided me with a studio that I could go to and photograph. And then they also helped me prepare for college. They were the reason why I was able to get into Parsons for photography. And yeah, that was my first exposure to the real world, pretty much when it comes to photography, from field trips to publication office and like editors and other photographers. We get to go ask them questions. Some of the people that I met through the program are Peter Hurley. I even got to assist Shari, who's in the audience right now. I got to assist her in a few photo assignments, and she was also my mentor as well. And me and Katrin also met through the program, and that's how I got into the workshop at SVA back in 2017. And when I first joined the program, these are some of my first images from the program, where when I first started learning about the ISO, shutter speed, I went outside to, document anything that I could. I used to walk around with the camera everywhere I go, from street photography to getting the opportunity to go photograph backstage of Fashion Week, to photographing my friends when we're hanging out, my little brothers in my room at the time. And this was one of my first shoots in studio. I knew nothing about lighting, and I knew nothing how to, I didn't know how to use a pro photo or set it up or anything. I just knew that there was a specific kind of image that I wanted to create, and I would just kind of lock myself inside the studio and then just keep experimenting. One of the mentors that helped me out a lot at the program was called Michael Kamensky. I think he's probably somewhere here in the crowd. Can't see everyone right now, but Michael.
Amigo, how are you?
Hey, Michael. But Michael works for Juice Pharma, which is an ad agency down in 26th Street at the time, I believe. And he will let me come in and use the studio when nobody's in the studio. And I don't know, I to this day, sometimes I can't believe he trusted me with all those expensive lighting equipments. But I'll grab my friends and a couple of stylists and makeup artists, and we'll lock ourselves in the studio sometimes 8 hours and just experimenting with things. And whenever I had a question, I would just go outside and grab Michael, or he would send somebody in, or he would come himself. And that's how I got to learn about my lighting. I learned from doing it by myself, just kind of going out there and putting myself out there and asking questions when I need to. And I think that's very important, is because a lot of time people are afraid to ask. And one of the things that I learned from my mentors is that you have to show up and don't be afraid to ask questions. And every day to this day, I'm always reaching out to the same mentors to ask them for advice, to ask them for their guiding, and ask them for the feedback on my work, because you will always need feedback no matter how good you are as a photographer. And throughout the program, my work kept getting better. And if you look at these images from when I first started to my early stages in the program, you can see that I started learning about depth of field, and I started playing around with my focus, my composition, and all these images that I went out on my own and grabbed friends and set them up. And sometimes I did everything from the makeup to the styling. And I just tried not to find any excuse and not doing a shoot. I'm always like, every day I was literally shooting and experimenting with color, gels, and different lighting style, and environmental portraits like this one. This one I started really getting into fashion. This is when I started playing around with clothing and lighting. And a lot of time people think that you need a lot of things to be able to create a good fashion portrait. And at the time I was photographing these with a reflector. These two images on the left right here, I had a golden reflector that I had my friend carry, and I did the makeup myself. And we just went to Washington, with the Washington Bridge and the Bronx, and then voila, like that's some of the images that I walked away with. And to this day, there's still some of my favorite images. And the two images to the right were all shot in natural lighting. And yeah. And I just continue experimenting and trying to get out of my comfort zone. One thing about me that sometimes it could get frustrating. I could either be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. But every time I feel like I'm comfortable with my work, I try to find something new to do, something that I haven't done before. Because when I don't feel challenged, I get very bored, and I get very uninspired. So it kind of gets me into this mental state that I don't really like to be in. Some call it depression, but I don't want to call it that. But yeah, right now, some of the current work that I've been doing, this is some of my current works. All the works that I did in high school, everything that I learned through the program, and all the guidance that I got from my mentors, all led up to this assignment right here. This was an assignment for Nikon. I got to photograph with the Nikon Z6 II before it came out. They were just like, hey, we have this new camera coming out. Here's a budget, and here's the camera. Go create something. So I put a team of people together, and this is my friend Chi. She is not a professional model. She's just a friend of mine who likes to model. And one of the things about my work is that I love to photograph real people, because I love bringing out certain looks out of people that they haven't experienced before. And we rented a cabin upstate, and then we went out there. We did a lot of landscape work, but we also set up a studio and a barn at the cabin that we rented. And this is some of the images that came out of that. And a lot of other works that kind of keep me sane when it comes to photography is personal work. It's so important. A lot of time people forget about that. They get into photography, they're like, hey, I want to shoot for this magazine, I want to do this. But the reason people will start hiring is because they've seen your work somewhere and they like it. And the only way for you to create something new is to kind of dig into your own creativity with nobody else's around and come up with your own ideas by yourself. And both of these images were shot underwater. And same thing, I grabbed a few friends and came up with this idea and brought it to life. And this is some of those images, and this had led me to get a lot of jobs from a lot of different clients, which I'm forever grateful for. And if I'm going too fast, guys, please make sure to let me know. These are also some of the images, like I said earlier, I love photographing with natural light and any lights that I have available. Early on in my career, one of the things that I always had on with me when I go on photo shoots is my reflector. I had those multi-reflectors. I had the golden side and the silver side, and I've always used all of them on every shoot that I was doing. Every day I was meeting up with new friends that I meet on social media, or makeup artists that I've worked with while I was assisting on set, and try to create something new. And just, this was both of these shots was in the Bronx, somewhere down in the South Bronx, if I remember correctly. And all these images as well were shot in Michael's studio as Juice Pharma. And same idea, these clothings were designed by one of my friends that went to Parsons. I just saw her work one day and I was like, hey, I would love to photograph them. And then we went into the studio and started creating. And these are the images that I walked away with. One thing that I noticed about my work is that I have a lot of movements in my work, and people tend to like that. And I realized that because a lot of times people talk to me about my personal style, and I sometimes seem not to try to understand, like I don't understand that sometimes. But what I realized that they're talking about is my movement, because I love this sense of movement in my work. I love, I don't like to just put my subject there and just have them posing and do something or staying still. I always try to, I always tend to have some sort of movement in my work, and playing around with slow shutter speed and using the lights and creating something that I have never done before. The image in the middle, for example, if I were to recreate that same image, I'm pretty sure I probably will not be able to, because it's some of those things that just come to me naturally when I'm photographing in the studio and when I'm experimenting. And same thing with the image on the left. It was just an experimental shoot that I did with my friends. Most of my best work, I tend to realize, comes from my personal work and the things that I'm doing to collaborate with my friends. This image on the right side was of Charles Blow and Will Liverman. It was for the New Yorker magazine. Charles Blow is a writer for the New York Times, and he wrote this book about his childhood that is currently now being reenacted at the Met Opera. And Will Liverman, who is on the right side, is the one acting as Charles Blow in the opera performance. And the assignment was to kind of create an image that will mimic both of their personalities together and try to make them one, just to kind of portray the subject and the performer. And that's how I came about with this image. And the image on the right side on this one is was also from the assignment that I did for Nikon. And same thing with the images, just love to experiment, either that being going super close in, playing around with makeup style, lighting style, and getting your subjects out of their comfort zone, just like the one that I did on the left side of my friend Jada, and just experimenting with most of those. And same thing here. I'm gonna go a little bit faster because I want to get to this one image that I really want to talk to you guys about. These images are from my personal project titled from my body series. Just same thing about what I'm talking about, just kind of experimenting. I remember getting to this point where it's like, I feel like all my photos kind of started to look the same, and I just wanted to get out of my comfort zone. And I started doing these body series. And the goal with them, if you see the original image of these shots, is nothing the same as the final edited version, because the same thing I try to do while I'm on set, when I'm photographing my subject, I try to do the same thing when I'm editing. A lot of times when you're editing people's skin tone, this is not the most normal skin tone you would have your subjects looking at. But sometimes, depending on what you're doing and depending on the project, it could come out looking really cool. For this one, I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted because it was my personal project. And that's why I feel like it's very important to work on a lot of personal projects, come up with new ideas on your own, and just kind of experiment with that, and just try to do something that you haven't done before. And these are all from the same series. This is actually the first time that I'm showing these two images. I shot these at Boise Studio, whom actually also went to SVA, I believe. He let me into his studio to photograph some of my friends for this project a couple of weeks ago. And this is what I ended up creating from there. And so with being a photographer, to me, I feel like you almost have to be a problem solver. You have to be, because there's going to be times where you're on set and you need to improvise. Or for example, last year we had the pandemic where a lot of photographers was out of work, and we were all kind of faced with, this decision of like, what do we do now? And do we just stop doing photography and try to find another thing to do to make money, or just to kind of keep busy and stay creative? I started experimenting with the FaceTime series. What I will do is that I'll call up my friends on FaceTime and I'll photograph them, I'll direct them, utilizing whatever they have around them. And this is the first one that I ever did with my friend Nate. I called him up on FaceTime and we went through his closet together and we came up with this outfit that he's wearing. And then I had him go outside on his front porch and directed him to have his phone on the steps and have it looking up. So the sky is the only background in the image. And then just started directing him through that and have him pose in front of my camera. And that led up to a lot of assignments last year because of COVID. A lot of people couldn't be on set because of the regulations and everything. And that led up to this assignment with Jasmine Sullivan, who's a singer. This was for New York Magazine. And same thing, I called Jasmine Sullivan through FaceTime and then directed her, and I had her put up like a fabric that she had as the background. And then in the middle shot, I had her go outside. And as soon as she went outside, I noticed that the trees in the background looked very interesting and very dramatic. So I just started directing her and had somebody else hold the camera and then told her what to do. And she was just doing. And one thing that I realized actually photographing people on FaceTime, they tend to be a lot more comfortable than they are in front of a camera. And this shoot took about, I believe, 20 minutes. We had like 150 shots, and it made me like, I don't know, it was just kind of very interesting how when you're photographing people in the studio, you spent like an hour just trying to get this specific look out of them. But I realized when people are in their own home and your presence is not something that they feel except through the phone, they tend to be a lot more comfortable and take directions well, which is pretty weird, but yeah, we made it work. And same thing with Arsenio Hall. This was for Esquire magazine. This was when Coming to America 2 was coming out. I wanted to do an article about him, and then I photographed him. He had like this drum set that he was very obsessed with, and he wanted me to photograph him. And I had some couple of images of with the drum set, but you could tell in the middle image there's like a drum plate like on the cup. But what I did was I had his assistant go to Home Depot and picked up some construction light that probably cost like $15 to $20, and then put that behind his construction drums, and then just kind of casted a shadow of it in the background and made that my background, and then shot it through FaceTime. And many other assignments, I've gotten through that, and these are some of them from different assignments. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about my documentary work. So I consider myself as a fashion photographer, and since the start, it's always what I wanted to do. But last year, when the protest started here in New York, it was one of those times when I felt like as an artist, I started kind of questioning my role in society and the things that I wanted to do to make a difference. So when the first protest started here in New York, I went out with a few of my friends and then started documenting what I said. Originally, I went out to protest, but then my friend asked me to bring my camera, and then I brought that with me. And then the next thing I just started photographing what I was seeing, and it ended up getting picked up by Time Magazine and the New York Times Magazine. And I started photographing that throughout the whole summer. But before I jump into that, I just want to kind of talk about the Eddie Adam workshop first. So in 2017, I got invited to the Eddie Adam workshop, and it was like one of those things that like I never knew that I was going to be one of the students that get selected, because to me it was like, this big photo workshop, which it is, but I just never saw my work to be something that would be considered and get me an invitation. So I got into the workshop, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Eddie Adam workshop. They select 100 photographers from around the world, and they bring you upstate in New York, and they divide you into 10 groups, and then they give you assignments, and you go out and photograph. And my assignment was to go do a fashion kind of look at a motocrossing race. And these are the works that I created there. I'm showing you guys this image because I feel like, to me, most of my documentary work, this is where it all started. Me photographing this and getting the feedback from all these other photojournalists that was there, I feel like kind of led up to the images that I took at the protest last year. So, oops, this is coming up. Okay. So yeah, last year when the protest started, I decided I'm gonna go out there to protest, and my friend was like, "Hey, you should bring your camera. I think it would be cool for you to capture some images." And at first, I was very scared because I really love my camera, and it's not something that I want to be running around with. And we didn't know what to expect at the protest, but I ended up bringing it with me. And then the work that I created, especially the first day, kind of shaped my career as a photography. And it was one of those kind of like eye-opening moments where, as a photographer, I realized my responsibility and the work, how meaningful my work could be to the world and to the community. And as you could see in the images, a lot of things went down that day. Throughout the protest, I got tear gas, and I got pepper sprayed and got chased many times by the cops. And I even got hit with a baton in my face. And all as a photographer, even though I had the press pass and everything. And this was definitely like an interesting time in my career because the same day that I went out for the first protest and took these images, I posted them on my Instagram. And then I get a DM from Andrew Katz, who's the deputy director of photography at Time Magazine. He was like, "Hey, were you sent out to photograph these as an assignment?" And I was like, "No, I just went out to protest and I just ended up taking these photos." And he asked me to send him those photos to get it published the next day on Time Magazine. And I spent the rest of that night up until 6 a.m. talking to him over the phone. And he was interviewing me about what was happening and how I came about taking these photos and describing the scenes. And then the next day, the images got published on the front page on their website. And that led up to me getting assigned to photograph for 2 months straight during the protests when everything was going on. And 3 of those images ended up in the top 100 images of 2020 on Time Magazine, and one of them was in the top 10. And that same work led up to me getting my first cover ever with the New York Times Magazine, which is in June 2020, which is this one. And yeah, I didn't want to end it on that note, so I'm gonna this year. So you guys know I'm from West Africa. I didn't get to go back home up until this March because I was undocumented. And December, I finally got my citizenship. So this year, with everything that went on last year, and then even this year, and I was just like, you know what? I think it's time for me to take a break from the States and go back home since I finally got my passport. You never really know what's gonna happen in the next few months. And I went back home, and then I started documenting my family through these pop-up portrait booths that I've been doing over the years, and photograph a lot of my families and my tradition, because I feel like as a photographer, it's really important to just kind of, not only documenting the world, but to also document yourself and your family and the people around you, and or the people that you grew up around, because I feel like it's just very satisfying. And going back home for the first time in 12 years, this photo kind of means the world to me. And I just thought I should show you guys. And I do a lot of work on my iPhone. I shot all these this slide on my iPhone 12 at the time. And then yeah, so that was the last of my slide. But I want to end it with this. Photography is a language, and just like any other language, the more you practice, the more you learn to speak in that language, and the more the people will start to understand you. And I have this one last video that I want to show you guys before I call it out. Give me a second. Let me get out of this screen. That was the end of my presentation, guys. Thank you
Woohoo!
so much.
Yay. Thank you so much. Am I supposed to be on mute when I clap? I can't. This is so amazing. So how old are you?
I'm 24 now.
Okay, so I mean, this was like a fast feast, full course meal of everything. I mean, all different types of work. It just kept going, 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 going. And I just wanted more, more, more. It was amazing. I want to start at the very end. In that video, you had on a t-shirt that said, anybody can do what I do.
Yes.
What an amazing message
Yeah.
to have. Now, I'm going to start then. Tell us about that shirt and why you wore that when your trip back home.
So that was my first trip back home in 12 years. And it's crazy because when I lived there, a lot of the memories that I had about back home kind of started to feel like a dream, because when you used to living in one place and then you leave the place when you were a baby, and like as you get older, you don't know if those memories are real or not. And me knowing where I come from and the situation that I used to live in, coming from a country where I've experienced war periods and everything like that, and being here and doing the work that I'm doing just kind of always sometimes feel like a dream, And my goal with my work and, with photography in general is to be able to one day go back home and influence some of my family and friends and other kids in Africa that doesn't have the same opportunities that I have here, And because I remember being back home and thinking like, wow, I wish I knew how the kids in America feel like. I wish I knew what they did and the things that they do, how they hang out in the city and all those things. And now being here and living that life is very surreal. So when I was going back, I went to Uniqlo because I wanted to buy any clothes to go with. And I saw this t-shirt, and I think it was a quote from Andy Warhol. And I was just like, you know what, this is the perfect t-shirt to take me home, take it home with me. They might not know what it means because they don't speak English, but I feel like eventually one day, if one of them get to speak English, it would just kind of click. And I don't know, I just felt like it would be like a full circle moment. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that you put thought into that. That is so amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, if we had like an overriding message from this whole talk and from, I love it. I'm 24 and you're talking about your career, is how you say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes to new ideas, new challenges, making it work. Like, I'm going to make great images with Facetime. I'm going to lock myself in Michael's studio. I'm going to work with my friends. I'm going to do a fashion shoot at a motocross place. And that's the thing that just shows that you're talented and you're also humble, because you're saying yes to all these opportunities. And that really sets you apart from people. As Michael would know, in this business, nobody wants to be around people that you don't like, that are arrogant. They could just pattern themselves all after you. I mean, because I could see why people would open doors and would want to work with you. And this is just amazing. And I follow you on Instagram, and I see some of the posts too that are tired, a little depressed, pay me for what I'm worth, etc. Like that little bit of reality comes through. Yeah. So how do you take care of yourself?
So that's the thing. Like, as I actually wanted to add a slide because I've redid this slide over and over. At the end, I wanted to just kind of, because as a photographer, people get into it and then see like, oh, you could do fashion works, you could do all these things and get paid for it. They don't really realize the reality that comes with it. Like as a photographer, there's going to be very slow seasons. They're going to be slow season, and there's going to be times that you're getting paid and things like that. And things get very hard sometimes, like I've been going to therapy since I was in high school, not necessarily because like I'm like this depressed kid or whatever, but sometimes you just need somebody to talk to and dump your emotions in, and that could just be a friend of yours. And in terms of creatively, the way I take care of myself is just shooting. Like, you know, and that's also one of the things I've learned a lot from you, actually, Katrin, because every time I look at your Instagram, you're always photographing something, even if it's a vacation you're taking a photo of a building and things like that, you know. And I've started to try to get myself used to that. Like, I mean, I don't post all these photos that I take, but like, you know, it's very rewarding going out there and photographing, just creating something new. And that's what I always do, especially when I feel down, when I'm like, oh, I haven't got an assignment in like a month, or like I haven't shot anything cool in a month. I'll just grab my camera and just start photographing something, or just sometimes just go out with friends, because you know, photography is not always going to be easy. It's going to be very depressing at times, and it's going to be very hard at times. There's going to be times that you need to pay your bills, but you're not getting it from photography. So never be ashamed, and never feel too, I don't know what's the word. I don't want to say cocky or anything like that. No matter how good your work get, and no matter how recognized you get, there's going to be times where you're going to have to pick up another job somewhere, and to be able to pay your bills. It's all about time management. It's all about, like, the reason I got into it, because it was a passion. I first got into it not as in like, oh, this is going to be my full-time job. I got into it because I was like, oh, I love doing this, you know. And I feel like that kind of helped me a little bit, because whenever things get tough, I'm like, okay, cool. Remember, this is just your passion. Like, even though you're doing it as a dream, you're doing it right now as your full-time job. But if you don't have a passion for it, it will not feel like it's worth it, you know. And you know, as a photographer, some people become photographers for years, and then they realize, you know what, this is not really my passion. So, and it's okay for it not to be a passion, no matter, you know, even if you're here right now, you want to be a photographer, and realize later on that it's not your passion. It's okay to find something new that's your passion. Anything it is that you're doing, if you don't have a passion for it, it's easy to let it kill you. And I feel like that's what keeps me sane, because I know I have a passion for it, and I know I really love doing this. And either that being, if I have to do a headshot for somebody just to make money, or if I have to photograph an event just to make money, or if I have to do a pop-up portrait booth, and or like sell prints, or anything that is that you got to do, make sure you do it to get yourself there and to feed your creativity, because it's very important. I don't know if that answers your questions, but
Oh, absolutely. Because no, it does. Because as a creative person, it's easy to sort of, as we say, go down the rabbit hole. And it's like, wait. So it's just like, grab your phone, go for a walk, see what you can discover. Absolutely. And it sometimes it's also just for you. I mean, I'm sure you've taken thousands of pictures that no one has seen.
Oh no. So I mean, I had emailed you last time. I was like, hey, I need more space on my Lightroom, because I ran out of space in my Lightroom CC.
Did I take care of it?
Yes, you did.
That's right.
But yeah, just like one of those, just like, you know, you just gotta, you know, love it. Like, you know, if you love it and you know this is your passion, and just practice, and don't be afraid to ask people. And like, even if someone is not your mentor and they know a little bit about photography, always reach out and be like, hey, what do you think about my lighting in this? Oh, you see this photo in this magazine, like, hey, what do you think the lighting setup was? Like, how do I get this look? Like, sometimes I used to pull up like a photo of somebody else's work, and the student be like, hey, Michael, what do you think about this? How can I get this look? Or like, it could be a movie scene that I want to recreate, and like the lighting was like, just don't be afraid to ask. And I'm always asking questions, and like, I'm always like going out there and trying to get feedback. And sometimes I spend a lot of time on Katrin's Instagram just to kind of see the work that she's doing. There's some of the things that she loves to photograph. Like, Instagram, you're literally one of my inspirations. I honestly got to say it. And I've learned so much from you. And I know we met at SVA. She was never my teacher. She was never a mentor I saw, but I feel like she's been a mentor to me, because she will see my photos on Instagram and be like, hey, nice work. And sometimes just that kind of, you know, kind of just satisfy me and be like, oh, Katrin likes my work. Or like, I remember there was this one time, it was many years ago, I took this photo of these ladies at Palm Spring, and Katrin was just like, this is not a good representation of women. And that always that meant a lot to me, you know, like that meant a lot to me, because it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, it's good. Like, you know, people sometimes take feedback the wrong way. Like, you know, like, even though you have an idea of what you want to create, always be open to what other people have to say, and take the good away from the bad, you know. And like, after she said, I actually looked at the image and I was like, you know what, this is actually not what I represent, and this is not the work that I like to do. And I took it down, because I like that feedback. And if she had never told me that, nobody will. Like, it would just be there, and I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just one of those, like, always don't be afraid to ask for feedback, and don't be scared, and like, just ask away, and be open to it, and any feedback is good feedback.
I think when we'll go to questions in a moment, I think what you're also saying is like, I was talking to you about your image. I wasn't talking to you about you, like you're being
Exactly.
bad about women or something.
Yeah.
And it's hard to separate your work from yourself because you're so into it. But by asking, by doing, you've gotten feedback from so many different people. You learn to sort of like who to listen to and what they're saying. And everybody has better days than others.
Definitely.
So absolutely. I love how you emphasize the importance of personal work and how much you experiment. And there's so many times when you're experimenting, and then there's that thin line to like, this is terrible,
Exactly.
and it's sort of like,
Yeah.
how do you sort of like go, whoa, I can learn from this, or need to go back, or where do you sort of manage that line?
I mean, first thing first is like, never post your bad work. Like a lot of time you'll see people's account or their website and you see all these amazing photos, but you haven't seen the bad photos, like, and every photographer take a bad photo on a daily. And, sometimes people tend to post all the photos from like, like from one shoot. It's like, no, go through your shoot, pick out the best one. You don't have to show the world everything. Like, keep the bad one to yourself and learn from it and be like, oh, I like this, it was almost there, now I know what to do in the next shoot, and then figure out the best one. Sometimes all the photos are bad in the shoot, that's totally fine, and just focus on the ones that you like and that you feel like represent you as a photographer, and also there was this thing that Rudy Roy, he's a documentary photographer and an activist. The first time I ever met him was I saw in the studio, and this was the first day I ever met him. And he started looking at my work. He was just like, I don't remember how we got into it, but he was like, every time you go on a photo shoot, never walk away with one image that you're proud of, that you like yourself. And I always, that quote, like his voice is always in my head every time I'm on the shoot and I'm frustrated and I don't like what I'm shooting and things like that. I'm always like, you know what, I'm gonna keep pushing until I get at least one image that I like. And sometimes you'll be working with clients and stuff, they have a specific look that they want you to create, and you're finding yourself creating that image that you like, oh, okay, I still didn't like the shoot, but as long as they're happy. No, like, like always walk away with at least one thing that you feel comfortable with. Like always get what the clients want, because that's why they're hiring you for. Always do that. But as a photographer and then as an artist, like always look for that one thing that you personally like, that you will keep and be like, oh, I love this. And
that feeds you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So we have a question here. I think it's very important. It's from Tom, but it's really for everybody. What is the process of working, collaborating with editors? Like one that, for the protest pictures, they approached you, but sometimes they hire you. How is that relationship built?
It's different every time. I mean, right now it's easier for me because I have an agent. And I usually tell them all the questions that I have, and they find the best way to ask them. But before I got an agent, it was, I'm still learning every day, because everybody that you work with is going to be different. Their process is going to be different. But most of the time is that they're either reaching out to you because they have a specific image in mind that they want to recreate, or they've seen some of your work that they want you to kind of recreate. Or sometimes they'll just approach you and be like, oh, we love your work. We want to work with you and come up with something new. And to me, that's always my favorite part, when editors approach me and be like, hey, we just love your work, and we have this thing that we think that, you could help us develop and make something new out of it. And usually that takes creative calls. Like, we will set up a time, we'll get on a call, and they'll tell me the ideas that they're thinking. And sometimes I'll give them ideas right there in the call, or like sometimes I'll be like, hey, okay, cool. I'll take notes and be like, and I'll sit on there. I'll be like, can you give me a day or two to get back to you? And I'll put together a mood board or treatment. And then I'll spend some time and do my research based on the things that they mentioned about what they're looking for. For example, like the Charles Blow image that I showed you with the two guys in the black and white. They, one of the guys were portraying the other guy based off of a book that he wrote. And they wanted an image that kind of represent both of them. And, like they wanted an image that showed them to be, two person in one, something that just kind of, that they relate to each other. And I had to sit down and I had to pull references and things like that, or kind of, build my own mood board off of that and be like, hey, based on what you told me, this is what I'm thinking. Let me know what you think. And then they'll come back with their feedback. And then sometimes they'll be like, oh, we love this. We could move on with this. What do you need to get this done? And then you put together equipment list, you send it to them. And then once they approve it, and you go on and book the shoot date. And that's usually how the interaction, I don't know if that was too, like, this is exactly what happened, but it always changes. Some clients give you creative freedom. They're like, hey, you don't even need to make a mood board, go in there and create something. And that's always fun. That was the same thing with Nikon. They was just like, hey, here's a budget, figure it out. You figure out how much you want to pay your models, you figure out how much you want to do this. And then I sat down with my agent, we made a budget, and then we booked the studio, we booked the models, we booked the makeup artist. And then I had a mood board in mind, but none of the photos came out the way I was thinking about that I was going to photograph them. And that was the best part of it, because as soon as I got there, the energy that the models had and the look that the makeup artist was coming up with, it was just like everything we did was just kind of what felt right at that moment. And but just be careful when it comes to things like that, because sometimes it could go very left. But like I said, like, never walk away until you feel like you got the image that you were looking for. And like, like sometimes that might take maybe even rescheduling another day to shoot, but always make sure that, you don't stop until you get something that you're happy or proud of.
I think that is really good advice. Well, we know that how smart and talented Ruddy is. He was one of our very earliest I3 lectures. So we've been
It's amazing.
Good friends. Yeah, he's so smart. I'm always like, yikes. It's amazing. So I'm not sure if that answered the question about working with editors. I think it's, there's different roles. Sometimes they give you the brief, sometimes they give you total control. I think it's interesting that, that you're working with an agent, because, I mean, tell us what the agent does for you.
For me, well, they help me. For example, right now, one of the things that we're working on is that I want to send out an outreach to everybody that I worked with in the past to kind of stay in touch and be like, hey guys, check out my new work that I've been doing throughout the summer and other assignments that I've done. Hope you could hire me for X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. So the agents, I put together the treatment and the PDF, and then I'll send it to my agent and they put in an email, or sometimes we kind of work like, it's almost, this is different for every photographer, but my agents are almost like my mentors. I'm always asking them, what do you think about this? Do you think I've worded this right? And they'll help me edit it through. And then a lot of clients like to hear from the photographer for themselves. So, like, they'll help me put together the email and then I'll send it out to them directly, or like sometimes they'll send it out to the active they have their own personal relationship with. But I know nothing about contracts, and as you could see, I have an accent, so English is like my fifth language. So like it's not my strongest language. So that's one of the things that they're really good at. My agents, like, I'll get a contract, they'll look at this contract and be like, oh, this is contract shit, don't sign that. They're going to use the image for this and you won't have any rights to it. And always be careful with that. So that's one of the things that they also help me where, get my photos and how to get, like, a lot of photographers don't know that magazines have to pay you for how long they're using your image. For example, the most simplest thing. And I didn't know that until I got an agent. And, so that's one of the things that they take care of. I don't know, they literally take care of pretty much everything, but like, you do all the groundwork and they help you with communication and make sure that you're not, screwing yourself over,
Yeah. They're good at business.
Exactly.
And then we don't want them taking the pictures. So,
exactly.
But it's very important so that you can concentrate on what you need to concentrate on. And a lot of people in photography forget that because they're so into it and taking the picture and the passionate. Yep. It's like the image rights, the contract, the usage. It's to protect everybody.
Exactly.
Involved. And so it is really, really important. So I'm with you on that. We had a great comment here from Michael. He does want to know if your father ever got his camera back, but
no, actually, he never did.
But on that note, what is so great about you is that you remember where you came from. I mean, those family photos, and then when you go back home, the people, NYC Salt, when you sell prints, many times the money goes to NYC Salt. And that really makes it is so important. I mean, I'll say it in a very cruise way. You're not full of yourself. You honor and respect your family, your heritage, your country, your history. And it's been tough. I mean, there's not a lot of people in this room can say, I've experienced war. I mean, so I think that really is really important. And it really humanizes you, you know, to be sincere and honest. I think it's fabulous. And in that regard, the way you are working and sharing, it's giving back to people. I mean, there's a lot of photographers that look up to you now. So congratulations, keep going. I think that's great.
Thank you so much.
So I just want to go out and take pictures. It's really dark here and rainy, but that doesn't matter. We could always use a flashlight. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because we really need to have me be a host much longer, because it's like Malike was on. There's so many people. I love this. And this is a true like highlight, I think, of the I3 lecture series. So genuine, so sincere, and the work.
Thank you.
Just fabulous. I just want to like eat it up, but that wouldn't be very good. So really, really fabulous. I want to thank everybody that participated. And I hope the students in the room can like look at Malike and go, oh, that's what it takes. 8 hours in the studio, locking myself in, trying new things, experimenting, saying yes. And then you never know where it'll take you, because it's taken Malike very, very far. And so to the SVA staff, Tom, Marco, Sarah, thank you once again for putting on a great event. And I mean, I'm just like levitating in this chair. It's like, gotta go take pictures. So I hope
Katrin.
everybody is just as inspired. And we hope to see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Malike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It was awesome.